Of the Williamson County School Board. We'll call our meeting to order after an afternoon marathon session of fun for working on our strategic plan. So thank everybody for that. And because of that, I have a feeling we might try to go through this as expeditiously as possible, but we do have a couple of things on the agenda to talk about. Drayson, is that you?
We just did hear a double beat.
Drayson, are you there? Okay. We will hear him if he wants to be called on. So first item on the agenda is consent agenda. We went, well, in addition to the approval of the minutes, and we had several board policies for first and final reading on at the policy meeting last week, and largely law changes that were reflecting in policy, which is why they're on first and final. Does anybody have any of those that they want to discuss or pull from the consent agenda? Okay. They will stay on the consent agenda. Anytime, if anybody wants to do that, they can talk to Jason or Josh before Monday night. So I guess we move on to the superintendent's report. Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, board members. I did want to let you know, Mr. Brown actually just let me know that he is listening in. So we thought it was possible that both Drayson Beasley and Josh Brown might be able to spend some time listening into the meeting. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. If you hear another beep, it might likely be Mr. Beasley. So for the superintendent's report, I wanted to give you all some school opening updates, and I'm going to give you some stats. Certainly open any questions you may have, and I'm going to hit really about 6 or 7 kind of new things related to the start of this school year. I hope that each one will be some short, just bullet points on where we are. So I'm going to start with enrollment. Traditionally, we base our enrollment numbers on day 20, which is typically the day before Labor Day, thereabouts. So we are now 8 days into school, but I wanted to give you a little snapshot anyway, knowing that there might be some adjustment to that as we compare apples to apples on an annual basis. So as of yesterday, we are actually 60 students over our projected amount. And you all may recall that we projected a reduction of 0.44%. So if that holds steady, and it will probably decline just a little bit based on our experience in past years, our total decrease from last year will be probably about 0.2%, so fairly flat regardless, but I thought it was interesting to point that out. Related to that, right now, every single one of our grade level cohorts is actually increased in numbers. So last year's kindergarten class, as an example, is now this year's first graders, and that has increased by 99 students. Every grade level has increased. However, we have about 1,300 fewer kindergartners this year than last year's graduating senior class. So I thought it was important for you guys to get that visual. We have had people moving in at every grade level, but we've had more seniors matriculate out than kindergartners coming in. So we are still seeing growth, but the numbers are appearing different. The increase that we've seen right now is largely at the high school level. Middle school somewhat, but high school as well. So at the moment, our numbers show 125 more seniors than last year's junior class. So visualize that. We've had 125 more move-ins for that last year of high school. So I just felt like it's important to give you all a snapshot since we had this work session. We'll again finalize the year-to-year numbers at the end of day 20, which is at the end of 4 weeks right before Labor Day. But as a general rule, what we're seeing is pretty accurately tracking what we had predicted. And the trend that I've been talking to you about the higher grades tending to be larger rather than the lower grades, is tracking as well. Related to that, staffing, I sent you all a report just a few days before school started, that Wednesday, 5 days before, related to our staffing. I thought I'd give you a little bit of repeat on those numbers since this is a public meeting. Our teacher staffing is at 99% plus for general education teachers. We do have just a handful of kind of those hard-to-fill spots here and there at particular schools that they still need to fill. Our special ed teacher positions were staffed at 97%, 347 of our 358 budgeted positions are staffed. That is substantially better, about 5% better than we had last year. We were hovering around 91, 92% for special education teachers last year. Again, we're up at about 97%. Special education TAs, we are staffed at about 95%. Last year, we were in the 89 to 90% range. So we're very pleased with the work. And I know Vicki Hall, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, has been tracking that. We attribute that to two main things. One, better retention than we've historically had in previous years. And two, our numbers have been flat. And so the combination of those two things has been pretty good. Final number I want to mention related to our staffing, our bus drivers. We started this school year just last week with 238 bus drivers. Actually, that's what we had, 238 out of 251. And we have three substitute drivers, so we're still, for practical purposes, short because realistically we are going to have more than that on the absence schedule pretty much every day, just because life happens. We do still have first and second loads at those locations where we can get 2 loads done within that window of time we have. It's not ideal. We would prefer not to have any first and second loads. I know that some of you all might have gotten a question here and there from folks related to that. Over these recent years of us having that first and second load, we have tried to balance that out where one group of families don't have the exact same schedule year after year after year, because it does have some impact on families. So felt like that was important for you to be aware of. I want to jump to the next item, facilities. We did a ribbon cutting last Sunday afternoon at Brentwood Middle, total rebuild of that school. And I want to thank you all as a board for the work you've done over recent years, and talking to your commissioners about the need for those replacements to some of our older schools, and also thank the commission for funding it. There's a little bit of work to do still outside the building. The building itself is 100% done, but the field and the yard on the east side of the school is scheduled to be completed sometime around late October, in early November, and then that entire campus will have a substantial change based on what they've been going through the last 3 years or so. We are doing a ribbon cutting at both Page Middle School and high school on Sunday. 2:00 p.m. is our Page Middle ribbon cutting. 3:00 p.m. is our Page High School ribbon cutting. I'm sorry, 3:30. Thank you for that. So 3:30 at the high school. We're very much looking forward to that. Page Middle has actually been done a little bit longer, but we're having both of those ribbon cuttings at the same time. Again, thank you to the County Commission for funding those building replacements. Page High School was opened 50 years ago. 50 years ago, 1975. And their first graduating class was the class of 1976. So it's hard to imagine that. But a 50-year-old building built in the early to mid 70s was ready to be replaced. I want to give you a handful of changes that our families and our students are experiencing. Some of these are related to state law. Some of these are related to some board policies that we put in place, and some implementation of some practical changes that are worth mentioning. So from a safety perspective, we are rolling out a badging system for folks who will visit inside the school building and have not gone through our Tier 3 volunteer process where they actually get a WCS badge. They will scan their driver's licenses in, and they will have a sticker printed out where they can place it on themselves if they go behind the secretary's desk. In other words, go into the school building itself. It's going to be a very obvious sticker so that any school personnel will recognize that that's a visitor who's been screened. Many of you have experienced that kind of badging system, either visiting the state legislature, the offices downtown, or a lot of corporate offices here in town. Some of you may have jobs where you have that simple screening process. We are not having everyone scan in their driver's license if they're on the list to pick up in car line. We're just continuing to make sure that's the right person. So that's the most significant and obvious safety measure that we're implementing this year. And again, that will be rolling out. We had actually piloted that at a few of our schools last year, and so there will be a rollout to that. I wanted to give you an update on the physical activity law. You all may recall the legislature passed a law with some minimum activity periods, both at the elementary school and gave some detail related to the secondary schools. At the elementary school, the requirement is 40 minutes of recess per day. Our schedules have 45 minutes in there, and the elementary school schedules have all been structured to give that extra time. That, I will say, generally speaking, was a lot simpler than the secondary schools because our secondary schools have varied schedules. Dr. Lee Webb sent you all a spreadsheet, if I'm not mistaken, this morning with some detail for each of those schools. And so everyone's a little bit different based on their lunch schedule, based on their homeroom schedule. And so I encourage you to look at those details. I'm going to do a little bit of mea culpa on us as a district. The law related to secondary school free time actually did not change substantially compared to this current year. There was a 90-minute requirement. When some of our administrators went back and looked to apply it for this coming year, they recognized that some of their classrooms where they had scheduled some time, just over time just might have gotten missed on a particular school day. And so we've made sure that the structure was firm enough where we could identify and be able to go back and say, yes, in fact, this happened. So where we might have had in the past some informal middle of the class period, take a break time, that's not how we have this scheduled anymore. We're making sure that we have defined time within the school day for that. So again, I invite you to ask any questions with that caveat that what may happen at one particular school could be different in another spot across the county because the school schedules are different. I want to give you a quick update on the library policy that we implemented based on your vote in late spring, where you all created a structure for our librarians to put together a list, mature reading list, and with some very specific criteria for that. When we did the re-enrollment process, we included that option for our families to say, yes, I would like to be included. The recent data I have from last week is 13% of our parents did ask for them to be placed on that list where students would not have access to those books without parent permission. That's the district-wide average. At the elementary school, it's 18%, happened to be 13% in middle and 7% at the high school level. District-wide, 13% average, it's skewed heavy towards the elementary schools. And our librarians are working on that. We do anticipate that there'll be a significant number of books at the middle school and high school level, but very few that fit that criteria, if any, at some of our elementary schools. Again, we've had that discussion, but because that's new to our folks, I want to make sure you are aware of it. Next item that's a change I want to mention is our cell phone policy. The early results are in from a week and a half or so of school. Dr. Webb, I'm going to glance over at you and invite you to share a little bit. At the elementary and middle schools, frankly, we haven't seen a substantial change from last year because we had set a standard where students did not have their devices out. At the high school level, you may recall that we took a little bit further step than what the legislature had done by including a prohibition against using cell phones during transition time. We had a pretty substantial discussion about should we go ahead and eliminate that use during lunchtime as well, or turn over to our device. We actually set up a committee, and I'm having a mental block on what we've been calling it. Electronic
Screen time
device,
committee.
screen time and electronic device committee. And that committee has committed to looking at cell phones as their first priority. And we actually have a couple of board members on that committee. I will invite you all, Ms. Hibma and Ms. Wyatt, to give us some comments in just a minute or two. But when I mentioned the early results are in, Dr. Webb, can you give us a nutshell of how our high schools have been with cell phone usage during class time change?
Absolutely. Thank you for the intro to that. We're pleasantly surprised at the transition. And so you'll see in the spreadsheet that I shared with you, each school principal, just like our middle schools, had slowly transitioned over time to eliminating cell phones during the school day. Many of our high schools were in a transition phase of that as well. So there are many schools who already had no cell phone use in their academic time, with little shoe holders at the front of the room for every student to drop in. Those schools are reporting a really great transition. It's not that different than what we were already doing. The addition of study hall and then the addition of the class change has been a smooth transition. I think that we were pretty anxious about the change, but it's been a really smooth transition. We tried to ensure that we're not going overboard in our response as we see students out of compliance, and we are making our approach much more relational. We've had our class meetings. I think today's Thursday, so I think today we were concluding all of our class meetings from the kickoff from all of our high schools. So all the students are educated not only on the change, but the why behind the change. And I think, as I was sharing with Mr. Galbraith earlier, I think it's a good change that we are doing two things at once. One, we're emphasizing the importance of physical activity, and we're reigniting our initiative to ensure that we are approaching those 90 minutes in a strategic way moving forward, and ensuring that those 90 minutes of physical activity are not embedded into an academic period, that it's separate from an academic period, and we're being strategic about how that occurs at the same time that we're talking about the importance of being away from your devices. I think it's a natural transition period for us at the high school level, and the conversations have been well received. Students are our kids are pretty amazing anyway. I just want to kind of add that. But as our students are in the hallway and they, out of instinct, pull that out to do whatever it is that they want to do on their phone, whether they're checking a notification that they've received because it's in their pocket between class time, or if they're checking a calendar or whatever. If they're approached by an adult, they're like, oh yeah, that's right, and they're sticking it right back in their pocket and they're moving on. It's been a really respectful exchange, and I think it's one that has taken place with the two of those together, as I mentioned, in a very natural way that kind of supports our overall well-being as young adults. So the transition's been great. One of the questions that we asked as we checked in, and again, we're a week and a day or two in when we did this check-in, this pulse check, we asked about what does lunch look like? You know, are you seeing that because students don't have now their phones really at all during the academic day, at all in the transition period, at all in study hall, are you seeing that students are burying their face in their phones to get caught up on all their notifications? And we have not seen that. What we've seen is that students are still really excited to be socializing with each other, to having lunch together, catching up on all the things that have taken place in their academic day. We're asking them to really pay attention now that we're going to get in a rhythm in the next several weeks. I've asked for us to do like a more formal check-in at the end of the first quarter, specifically on that lunch piece, so that we can help inform the committee that's looking at that about what our student activities do look like at lunch. We have two high schools that still have an hour-long lunch, and so the physical activity is partnered with lunch, so that's a good place to look at how it's happening there. And then a majority of our traditional high schools are incorporating the physical activity as an option during study hall. One of the pieces that our administrators, we had a lot of conversation about, is what's happening in study hall. And I think I shared with some of you guys that what they saw, that students were on their devices on study hall a lot. So one of the things that we brainstormed together was how can we substitute that phone time that's going to be away now with some physical activity and some more productive use of their time. So most of our traditional high schools that don't have an hour-long lunch are looking at a rotation, so that certain days of the week, if I have first period study hall, if Dave and I are two of the study hall teachers, maybe we're the ones that are sending our study halls to another location, and then he and I are going to take any student who has first period study hall, giving them the opportunity for physical activity. We're partnering with our PTOs, which we've talked about. What kind of physical activity equipment can we get donated? And we're getting them outside, getting them moving. And what we're hoping happens over time is that more students see that this is a healthy transition for them, and they opt into that physical activity piece. What we've already seen with the schools that didn't start off with that study hall rotation and they were trying to incorporate it like in an activity period during their day, it was a little chaotic. So we had one high school that wanted to start with an activity period and everybody doing physical activity at once. And it was difficult to get the time in with kids, everyone at the same time trying to go to the same locations and be involved in a physical activity. So that school is transitioning now to the study hall rotation, small groups, more intimate groups. We're also focusing, and really K-12, but I'm speaking for secondary today, on building community. Our hope is that with two things happening, the study hall on those physical activity days will be smaller because some students are going out and doing physical activity. It'll naturally produce the environment for more casual conversations with a small group of people who aren't interested in physical activity. And then on the opposite of that, students who are out and participating in the physical activity in the small groups, it's easier to manage, and there is the opportunity to build community with students who are in other study halls. So we're excited about the transition. We're optimistic and honestly a little relieved on how the students have responded and the conversations that it's provoked. It's still early, a little bit of a honeymoon period, I'm sure, in some aspects, but we're going to continue to monitor. As I shared with you in the email, this is where we're starting with our plan with physical activity, with the open-mindedness of our students are going to tell us what are the kinds of things, now that they're feeling this emphasis away from devices into physical activity, what are those things that they would like to be participating in? What are the physical activity aspects? Do they want to play spike ball? Then let's talk to our PTO about getting some donated spike ball kits. So we're just going to lean into conversations with our students to make sure it's the type of activity they want to do, and we're going to be open-minded to adjust, especially this academic year, of meeting them where they are. So I'm happy to report not only a fantastic start to the school year overall, but a good start with these two initiatives specifically.
Thank you, Dr. Webb. I think that's a good transition to a discussion about the Technology and Screen Time Usage Committee. And as I mentioned, Ms. Wyatt and Ms. Hibma are members of the committee, and also Jenny Lopez and Andy Davis, who are sitting behind some of you, are leading that committee's work. So I did want to invite either one of our board members to share any detail you'd like to share related to the work of the committee. I'll give a quick overview. Like I mentioned, the committee has committed itself to looking at cell phone usage as its first priority. You all know that the content and the scope of what this committee intended to work on was broader than that. It includes use of technology in general and even use of technology outside the schools. But they did, because of the will of the board related to the policy we were just discussing, spend their most recent meeting really drilling down into that policy and their view of what information they needed to make some recommendations for what's best for WCS. So I'll pitch it to you all if you have anything to share.
Okay, yeah, okay. That sounds good. So I am in the grade band with the 3rd through 5th graders, and was it Tuesday? Yeah, on Tuesday, we were given handouts with all the parent feedback, which I thought was very helpful for our grade band on how they felt on the different topics of interest. So that was very helpful to see if there was a lot of consensus or mixed views. And then individually, we went and put our own input on a piece of paper, and then as a group, we discussed. We came to consensus, and so our 3rd through 5th grade group, all of us believed or came to the consensus that the students should, once they get on school property, whether it's a bus or just walk into the building, that their phones or their, like their watches should be away until they leave the school property. So that would include any time on the bus, because it was our understanding that a lot of the issues that happen on the bus are because of cell phone use, whether they're, just getting in trouble because of what they're, watching on the cell phone, or just taking pictures and bullying and things like that. And we realized that we want to respect the bus drivers, and that they need to be driving the bus and thinking of safety first. And so that was where that consensus came in at. And, and one area that was very interesting was the parents' views for emergencies was very mixed, and a lot of them wanted to see their children have a phone so they could be contacted, but and then that's looking at from a parent's perspective, and so that's where I think the parent education will be very helpful. Because the teachers and the principals were saying that, no, we don't want the children, we want those away in a cubby or things like that, because we want those children listening to our instruction so that we can keep them safe. So it is a safety issue. What else? And then another consensus was that so some schools, like Jason was saying, is they were already practicing the policy that we had. But if there was another school and so then they were fine with that. But if another school had a little bit lax rules, then there was a little bit more pushback. So, but you could see that if you set the expectations at a certain level, then that's what those children expect, and they get used to it. And so I think if, over in time, once, the other group of kids, once they know that these are the expectations, that will be, just the protocol, and that's what we should expect from them. And the other thing that I was just talking to Dave Allen about was, as the committee puts forth these recommendations to the board, we also need to include input from the professional data that is out there, because that's a really important component, and that needs to be discussed with the committee, and then so that they can present that to the board. So we just need to make sure that aspect is included in the discussions.
I'll just piggyback a few things. Like Tanya said, I think that there does need to be a little more education for parents, and like what Dr. Webb said about the why behind how we handle emergencies, just to help our parents feel better about that, and that their children not having the devices, because we could be actually compromising their safety if they are trying to be in touch with parents or respond to notifications on their phones when we are in a terrible lockdown situation. So I think just educating about that. And then back in July, we sent out, as Jay joked, about a one question. It wasn't a survey. It was more like another touch point for parents, and we had over 2,500 responses. So that's the replies that Tanya was talking about. And Andy and Jenny did such a great job with this, but they made a word cloud. So if y'all are familiar with this, and sorry for the people listening or watching, but the bigger the word is how many, it was mentioned more by the responses. So you can tell what was concerning and what people were thinking about. And I just want to encourage anybody listening or watching that that is still available, I think, until early September for any parents. Now that their kids have had a couple of weeks with the policy, we would still love to receive your input and just know how it is impacting your family. So again, it's just a one question, lets you declare if you're a parent, student, teacher, administrator, tells us your grade band because that's really important and helpful with the feedback, but then just really helps us moving forward with the committee.
Thank you all for that, and I want to touch a little bit on that. You mentioned the feedback from parents. Yeah, Mr. Galbraith and I actually had a short conversation, and yeah, our reaction was this was not a research-based survey. I was actually pleasantly surprised at how much feedback we received from our parents, and after being able to observe the discussion of the committee, it really did inform the committee well. So we haven't sent a survey out asking for a vote or anything like that, but the committee did want to get some feedback from parents as a touch point, really to prompt some in-depth discussion. So related to that, I want to do a double check with Ms. Davis and Ms. Lopez. From a timing perspective, from a scheduling perspective, next steps and when, could you share where the committee is?
Yes, absolutely. The next meeting that we have is on September the 9th, and at that time, we're going to pick up where we left off. I'm looking at what the committees submitted because each group, there are 4 groups in the committee, and that's representing 4 grade bands, K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and high school. And each group submitted their ideas right now as a consensus, and we asked them to, where they reach consensus, to let us know, and where they hadn't, to also point that out in the document they submitted. Right now, they've reached consensus on everything that they've written, and actually, it seems like they went to the places where they agreed and started there, because not every group started from the top to the bottom of the document. Some started in the middle of the document because I think they probably all felt like they could reach consensus on those points. And so the homework now is they received this document. I emailed it today so that they know what the groups discussed. And they're going to think on the rest of the different topics that they're coming back to discuss when they get back together September 9th. They'll have an opportunity to pick up where they left off, continue to work on reaching consensus on all of the different points that we gave them. And basically, they're looking at language in the policy, what is not considered in the policy. So they are I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be able to get back together September 9th, look at the rest of the points, find consensus for refinement recommendations, and that means that we will get back to you at the next work session on, I believe that is the 11th, September 11th, and come back to you with recommendations from that committee by grade band and with a lot of detail. So some of it is just going to be feedback to you to inform you on what the committee has reached consensus on as far as all the points that are addressed in policy and some that are not addressed in policy.
Thank you for that. And the work of the committee will be ongoing even past that, but largely on other topics related to technology use. So a couple things related to that. I strongly encourage you all as individual board members, if you've got time on September 9th, come and sit in and listen. I think it'll give you some insight. The timing may not work for your schedule. If I'm not mistaken, it's from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. But especially for me as a superintendent, seeing that interaction and listening to that was very valuable. Second piece I wanted to mention to close out this piece of the discussion, one of the things that I specifically mentioned to the committee when the topic came up related to the policy versus the law versus what the committee might think is best for the district is make a recommendation on what you think is best. We don't know whether it might conflict with the existing state law, and if it does, it may lead to us having some discussions with our legislators. For example, the safety issue that you mentioned, Ms. Wyatt. Within the policy is that students shall not use their devices except in the event of an emergency. Well, you may recall that the emergency has not been defined in the law. And so we may have some more work to do related to some of those items. Final thing I want to mention related to technology in general, when it comes to changes for this year compared to last, we have not assigned devices to our elementary grade students and sent them home with them. So more particularly at those youngest grades, you may remember that when we went through the budget process, we let you know we would not be buying a device for every student. So it is an impossibility for us to send those home for the youngest grades. We have, however, had a small number of parents already ask for the older elementary grades, hey, can my child bring the device home, because there's some good math apps, for example, where my child can do some quick drills on some math standards, et cetera. And the short answer we've given is yes. We'll make sure that your child can take one home to do those things. So I wanted you to be aware of that if a parent sees that opportunity, we want to make sure we facilitate that for them as well. And Mr. Chair, I've got just one more just-in-time change, and then I've got a little bit of data to share with you all that will be a follow-up from the strategic plan meeting that you had earlier today. We made a change with respect to how we describe school fees for this coming year. And you may recall that we've known for years that any quote-unquote fee for a class is not truly a fee in that it is not required. But the state describes those as fees, voluntary fees. So we made it a point to change our terminology and let folks know that we are changing that terminology, and that rather than having school, class, voluntary fees, we would ask them for a donation. Our schools are in the process right now of rolling that out. Some schools rolled it out, if I'm not mistaken, late last week. Others even today, I think tonight, at open houses are rolling that out. So we don't have any really good data yet, but I wanted you to make sure you were aware that we have made that change. We have had some questions from parents along the lines of, what does this mean? Does this mean this money's not going towards my child's class? Is it going to be used for the general fund? Why, we've gotten a series of questions related to that, so we're fielding those questions. We have published in our communications department through Carol Birdsong published a story very specifically on this, and on the website there is a letter from me trying to succinctly explain this, that they're not required fees. We're changing the terminology. When the request comes, the request is just like it always was. We're making that request. So we won't have good data, I don't think, really good data for probably a couple more weeks about the numbers. But if you recall, last year we had a little bit over a total district-wide of $1 million in class fees. So we will be comparing that to what we receive from the solicitations for donations that our folks give out, and may bring something to you later on related to that. So with that, those are those quick bullet points on changes that we have across the district for this year. Mr. Chair, during our discussion of our strategic plan, as we prepare to affirm our strategic plan next month, we, as anticipated, ran out of time. We had a couple other items on the agenda to share with you just in case we did run out of time. And we did have a specific board member request related to some data on the 3rd and 4th grade retention law and how we fared this past year related to it. So I've got some data, some nutshell data related to this year that just completed and the prior year. I want to give you a 2-year window for where we are with that. So this year, this past spring and into the summer, and the year prior to that, we had almost the exact same number of 3rd graders tested through TCAP. In 2024, we had 3,057 students tested, and in 2025, we had 3,027. So a difference of about 30 students out of that 3,000 plus. Last year, 354 of those students went to the required tutoring based on their performance at TCAP. That was 11.6% of our total students. This year, 307 went to tutoring. That was 10.1% of last year's third graders. So an improvement of about 1.5%, if you look at it from that perspective. Last year, 297 third graders, in 2024, 297 third graders attended summer school. And this year, 379 attended. So we actually had more third graders attend summer school this past summer than were required to do so. So that was, we were able to, based on our staffing, allow more students than needed to. But here's the key bottom line number. 2024, we had 3 third graders retained based on discussions that the principals had related both to TCAP and the tutoring, and based on the discussion of what's best for the child, best for the student. This year we had 2 students retained, and each of those 2 were based on some in-depth conversations the principals had with parents about what's best for the child. So I want to emphasize to everyone, those tiny numbers of students that are retained aren't retained because they quote-unquote fail some test. They're retained because, in conjunction with school administration and parents, the determination is that that's what's best for that child. And I will tell you, fundamentally, that's the kind of work our principals have been doing for years with our parents at the elementary level. Developmental issues are considered. Of course, yes, student performance is considered as well, but it is a parent-administrator conversation about what's best for that child. So that's my nutshell. Certainly open any additional questions you may have related to anything I've shared, Mr. Chair.
Does anybody have any question for Jason or staff?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any data then on the 297 from 2024 who went to summer school and how they did on the TCAP in 4th grade, ELA TCAP?
Thank you for that. I don't have that as I sit here. I will make sure we get that to you all. Dr. Allen, I don't think we have any record of retention at the 4th grade, but I will do a double check.
No, there's a pathway for every student to move
Yeah.
on. The specific question about how they performed on TCAP will be good data for us to pull, though.
Yeah.
I don't have
Thank
that
you
at
for
my
that. I
fingertips.
missed that.
Well, it just speaks to the whole mechanism. The state
Yeah.
requires the summer school specifically for ELA, for reading comprehension. So is that working for those
Yeah.
kids?
Yeah.
That's-
I think
We-
we could
we can't speak
disaggregate
to
it.
that.
Yeah, I think we could disaggregate it by students that had to attend summer school only, and then disaggregate it by students that had to attend the summer school and the tutoring to see what kind of increase in performance they had. It's a good
Yeah,
data
we
source
can
for us
give
to
you
pull.
some data on that. I will tell you what I have heard, and again, this is anecdotal, it's not data driven, is the students who've been able to go to the summer school program, which is 4 weeks in June, being able to extend the school year has been a net positive for them. They do now, the state, have a test at the end of the program to show some indication of mastery. Dave, I'm gonna use some real simple terminology. It's quite a simple test. Is that too much of a?
It's a really short assessment.
Yes.
I was making myself a note about pulling that data,
Yeah.
so I missed the first part of the question. The question
Talking
was
about the assessment at the end of the
post-test.
post-test at the end of the summer school program.
Correct. So the post-test is a really short assessment. We had some students that were able to progress and then not have to attend tutoring because they met the threshold. I think it's a 5% increase in their score. It's really hard to measure a student's increase in reading comprehension with such a short assessment. It's
Yeah.
not a great measure. Hate to say it that way, but it's just not a great measure.
We'll make sure we get you that get all of you that fourth grade data before the Monday board meeting. And I'll be happy to speak to it at the superintendent's report at the voting meeting as well, to make sure that we share that detail.
Donna?
This actually goes back to the cell phone policy and the wireless devices. I know that and I'm so pleased to hear how that's going. Have you also, because I know it also applies to Apple Watches, because mine keeps dinging during this meeting, I kind of want to take it off, and AirPods, you know, are the kids letting go of those as easily, or are you all going to kind of roll it out slowly?
So, yes to both of those things. They continue to be issues. So, classroom, in the academic setting, the watch is something that the teachers are having to address. Because if my phone is in the little bag up front, it's still going to ding. And so they're collecting those or having them turn them off and put them away. The AirPods, some schools specifically talked about, and you'll see that in the feedback, about the AirPods in the hallway. And I think that's going to continue to be something that we just have to address and convince the students to put away. And again, we're taking a relational approach now. My hope is by the end of the first quarter that we've kind of just started really reteaching those behaviors, and hopefully it's not as much of an issue. It's interesting, though, because I think the culture in different buildings have been different. I think there are some campuses where that's a pretty common thing in years past to have one AirPod in and one AirPod out in the hallways, and there are some schools where that really isn't part of their culture at all. And so it's really just addressing it where it's happening, and hopefully we're going to just change those behaviors. Yeah. But it's funny that you asked that question, because I really anticipated the phone was going to be the big stickler, but in some schools, those two things that you mentioned were 100% the hot topics. Mm-hmm.
I had a question for Ms. Lopez. When you said that we've got several points that we're getting each group to weigh in on, like what specific, do you have specific questions that you're asking them, like 3 or 4 things that regarding the cell phones that they're weighing in on?
Sure, yes. I actually have, I have the form right in front of me. So we basically separated it into different buckets. So it's places during the school day where students would where they would give feedback on cell phone use or device use. And that is like hallways, early arrivals. So even when students arrive at school, they're on school grounds, but they may be there early or staying late. So we asked about where those places are and those times during the day. So that was one bucket that they're looking at. Another one is language in the policy, specifically devices are silenced. There was a lot of conversation around what is it silenced or is it turned off? And so they had conversations about the difference between silencing phones and turning off phones. Also, they had some discussions about when authorized by teachers for educational purpose, because that's another language in policy that they had conversation about. And devices are not used during the school day. That was another one that was discussed. Then they talked about during the school day, class change, lunch, study hall. And then we left it open for, are there additional times or areas in the school that they would want to provide feedback? I will tell you, most of the conversations where it was very robust were watches, devices like what we were just talking about right now. And another one, not so much AirPods as watches, I think were an issue. The students that were not removing the watches and have connection on their watches. And the other one was about whether to have in policy that students need to put their phones in a certain place. So is it like lockers, phone lockers, or phone pockets? Lots of conversation about students not possessing phones on their body or at their desk, because that's not really explicit in policy as well. So, well, it is. It actually says may possess. So they were talking about, can we have it so that there's a place that they're setting their phone. So lots of conversations about that. The other one was about silence versus off. So all the things you predicted at the last, at the board meeting where we talked about, these were discussions you were having, those were the same discussions they were having at that meeting.
Sounds good. Anybody else? Any other questions for Jason regarding all the different topics? If not, we'll
Yes.
move on to
Jay.
the operations report. Oh, sorry.
I have one related to the physical activity. So I guess more for Dr. Webb. Thank you so much for compiling this feedback from the principals. Or it helps us see what's going on at each school. And what jumps out at me is a couple of things. Number one, some students get it every day, the time for physical activity every single day, because as you mentioned, there's a couple of schools where they have a 1 hour lunch period, and so it's easy to build it in right there, right? And I think that is the intention behind the law, is that we want kids to get outside, even if they don't get physical, that they're getting some fresh air, getting some sunshine, getting outside. So I guess a question for you is, what is the feasibility of getting to a spot where at every high school kids are having that opportunity every day of the week? That's the first thing. And the second thing is the study hall piece is, I don't know what to think about that exactly, because in our cell phone policy, we are treating study hall kind of like instructional time, and we're asking that phones be put up during that time. And yet for this portion of it, we're allowing them to have some physical activity time. So those two don't really sync in my view, but.
Thank you for the questions. So on the difference between the hour-long lunch campuses and those that don't have an hour-long lunch, how they manage their non-academic time is unique to their individual campus. So if we see that we have a lot of students who need intervention, then we're going to have an intervention block, and then we're going to have that built in to the school day. If a school feels like there's other ways that we can get intervention to kind of embedded, maybe they go a different route. And my vantage point, what I want to do is look to see, how do students take advantage of the opportunity. If we have an hour-long lunch and only 10% of the students participate in physical activity, but we have the study hall rotation, which is new and we're trying it, and 50% of the students, or 40%, take place in physical activity, then my preference would be where the kids want to go. We talked about block schedule earlier in our conversations, and certainly if a class only meets every other day, those across the state are not getting physical activity every day either, based on they have it built in. So to me, it's about feasibility, meeting the kids where they are, ensuring that they are actually taking advantage of the opportunities and hearing their feedback. So I'll have more information, I think, at the end of the semester, where we can kind of just look and see, and I want to go see what it looks like in those study hall times. Are we truly pushing for students to take advantage of these opportunities, or are we going to get to the point where the students say, I'm exhausted, I don't want to do this, I want to sit and talk to my friends, or I want to be social in some other kind of way. So I really just want to lean into what the kids are telling us, and then maybe we'll have a recommendation to do something completely different a year from now. The study hall piece, about the academic time, was a conversation point for us as well. And of course, in this conversation here that we had about the use of the phone, and we've considered that, okay, let's not let the students have their cell phones during study hall time. And actually, we've supported that. That feels like a very natural place to be, based on how often students were utilizing their phones during study hall time. But it isn't an academic period. In fact, a lot of schools across the state of Tennessee and the country don't have study halls. And so when we're trying to figure out how can we encourage physical activity, how can we not take away from instructional time, to make sure that we have a balance of all of those things. It felt like a natural place because what we're hearing is that not a lot of students utilize that study hall time to study. They've been on their phones, right? So it felt like a natural, healthy place for substitution, just to see if the students take advantage of it or if they don't. But I agree with you, like it's something new, something that we're trying. I think it's worth the effort to figure out, is this something that's going to be our remedy long-term, or if we see that the physical activity kind of needs to happen in some other place in some other time. But we don't consider that to be an academic class period. I don't think the state does as well, and that goes back to the fact that not many schools across the state necessarily have a study hall either. So it just felt like a good place to start, especially in small groups. And as I mentioned earlier, that sense of building community in small group versus everybody go at once for 20 minutes. We'll just see where we land. I think it's worth a conversation.
Yeah. Is everybody go at once for 20 minutes, was that like because of there was a homeroom type
It's just how
situation
we shift
happening? Or?
Yeah, how we shift the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, how we shift that extra time. So like we have some schools, not many, that have a traditional homeroom. I'll give Ravenwood High School as an example. They've had a traditional homeroom for a long time, but they utilize that homeroom for embedded activities. So as an example, they're a school that embraced a freshman mentorship program for probably the last 20 years, and it's a part of their culture, where during homeroom, every freshman gets mentored by a group of students who really battle to be one of those treasured freshman mentors. Like, it's super competitive, and that's built into their culture. Other schools are kind of doing it in different ways, but for them, as an example, having that homeroom time where every student is going out and being physically active isn't where they wanted to land, because they don't want to lose some of that rich programming that doesn't necessarily happen every day, but to get 90 minutes in, it would have to happen every single day. They just want to try something different. So I kind of embrace the philosophy of, let's not all try the same exact thing at the same time and then likely get the same results. Let's all try something a little bit different and figure out what works for our school community. And we kind of embrace that approach. We take I call it a loose tight. It's part of the Rick DeFore model of how you run schools, a loose tight approach. What are we holding tight to, and what are we going to be loose in? And so I think we put some guardrails in place, let schools try some different activities and figure out where the schools kind of gravitate to. And we may see, and because we see this a lot with our school community across the district are vastly different. So giving them the chance to individualize what takes place between the first bell and the last bell has really reaped for years a lot of great success for us. So we're holding tight to a few things, being loose on others, but just being honest and sharing best practice and figuring out where the sweet spot is for each campus. So my personal commitment is that we're going to continue to have these conversations and share those best practices. I have intentions of watching some of those things take place firsthand, and then talking to our superintendent advisory that actually cranks up here in a couple weeks and hear all their great feedback on it. I know that they'll come ready to share some things with us too.
Thank you.
From a data gathering standpoint, Dr. Webb and I had a discussion. I'm going to make sure I'm in some of our high schools during lunch as well. Because what I've heard just this first 5 or 6, 7 days is it's just as loud as they want to be, which is actually something we want to hear, right? Because of that verbal interaction.
Well, thank you, Dr. Webb, for pulling together that information. That was at my request. You were probably going to do it anyway, but I really appreciate it. It was helpful. Concluding your
That's my report.
All right, so Mr. King, operations report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Golden already updated you on the Brentwood Middle project, so I won't rehash that. The Innovation Center, the block installation is complete. They're working on the steel joist installation is complete. They're beginning roofing, interior walls going up and framing, and the canopy installation has begun. This project is scheduled to be completed in April and be open next year to our students. So we're on schedule there. I'm going to do something a little different tonight. Our operations, I'm not going to go through every department. do a lot of work in the summer to get ready for school. And if anybody ever wants to call and talk about it, I'd be glad to. But I do want to hit on a few items from maintenance, and this is just a few items that were done over the summer. The Fairview Elementary plumbing project was complete. We replaced 3 elementary playgrounds. HVAC at Fairview Middle, Grassland Middle was complete. We're starting rink staff now. Our wastewater treatment plant at Hillsborough Elementary Middle was done over the summer. There were 7 schools that had paving projects. And like I say, the list goes on. There's a lot of work in all our departments on the operations side as well as instructional. There's a lot of work that goes on in the summer to get ready for teachers to come back. And so, but that's my update unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. King. Well, board chair report, I'll utilize 30 seconds of the board chair report to get us back on track. But a few of us went to the Brentwood Middle School ribbon cutting and really just invite everybody to the Page Middle and Page High ribbon cuttings on Sunday if you're able to make either or both of them. It was great to get a tour of the facility. I hadn't seen the hallways. I've seen most of the rest of it at Brentwood Middle, but the students love to give their tours, and they were awfully proud of their school, and it was a great event. Long time in the coming for all of these. I think Page High School's been going on longer than Brentwood Middle School, if that's even possible. Page High School.
That's correct. The phasing
It was like
of it.
7. It was like 12 phases, right, Aaron? Yeah. It's been a long time. So.
You added Page Middle, there's been a lot of construction on our road.
Yes. So it was great. Y'all did a great job and concur with with all the summer work that you've done. It was great to get back and see all the good progress. So no other questions? So we have new business. Ms. Farmer, you have the first couple of items on the agenda, starting with the adjustments to the 25-26 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first amendment is bringing forward any outstanding restricted donations we had last year and just putting them back into this year's budget. So a donation would have been given, all of it wasn't spent, and so because it was restricted, we will go back and put it into the 25-26 budget. The total amount of those donations was $84,421.51. There's no questions on that one. The next one is the transition grant. That particular grant's year runs from October through September. So we will have to put back into this year's budget 3 months. And the carryover amount for that particular grant was $31,803. No questions on that one. The next is resolution, which is the $2,000 teacher bonus that the state provided through the Education Freedom Act of 2025. The funds did come in, and so we actually have gone ahead and paid that bonus to those teachers that qualified. Again, qualifications were you had to work 121 days and spend 50% of your time in direct services with students and be a certificated teacher. So the amount that the state provided to us was $7,068,763.50. This is putting it into the budget. And again, that was paid. Teachers would have received that, those that qualified, no later than Monday of this week.
And Mr. Chair, just to give you some perspective on the numbers, 3,059 teachers from last year received this fund, 33059. 348 of our certificated teachers did not qualify for one reason or the other, either because they came late during the school year or they were part-time or their work did not include more than 50% of direct instruction time to students. So 3,059, 348. The average amount that we receive from the state per teacher was $2,310. So that, I point that out to just remind you that the $2,000 included taxes and the retirement amount that we pay back into TCRS. The design of it was to get a net $2,000 to those teachers. Is
Now,
that
the employer taxes were
Employer
covered.
taxes, thank you.
The employees' taxes were not covered. So on average, our teachers received right around $1,300.
Yeah.
Is what they netted out of that.
So the employer portion of FICA and Medicare,
Retirement.
Medicaid.
Social Security, Medicare,
Yep.
and retirement
Yep.
was what they included.
So just to set proper expectations, they're, when they look in their,
It's not, all of, everybody is not exact, depending on what kind of retirement plan you
right.
fell into. And then also some of our staff had additional deductions coming out, going into 401ks, various other retirements. And so, or there could have had garnishments. So every check was not exactly the same, but on average, it's around $1,300.
So I want to thank our payroll staff, because it was so individualized and personalized based on where the teachers were on their experience levels and retirement amounts. It took a lot of individual data entry.
HR helped. They were instrumental in making
Thank you
those.
both.
Yep.
All right. No other questions on that? Ms. Farmer, the outstanding purchase orders.
This last item is just an annual requirement by the state for us to provide a listing to you of any open purchase orders at the school level. And so this is the 52 schools reporting anything that was outstanding. Why would it be outstanding? They either haven't gotten the items that they have ordered, or they may have received the items but not actually received the invoices, or they could be waiting on credits. All of that information is listed out for you. Again, just an annual requirement.
And if I may, just as an FYI, if you printed this on standard paper, the far right column might not have come through, but it should be available electronically.
And so just in preparation for Monday, Ms. Farmer, just know that I'll ask you what our fund balance was, our ending fund balance compared to what we expected. Just
I'll go ahead and tell y'all, we won't know that answer just yet. The auditors have not finished, and so we'll still have some year in. But based off of the calculations, we are almost spot on exactly where we predicted we would be. But I'll have that for you.
sounds great. Thank you. Next, Mr. Golden, approval of sick bank trustees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a memo for you for recommended trustees of the sick bank. Mr. Brown has actually recommended Mr. Beasley and Ms. Clements to serve on the certified sick bank, and the WCA has those two recommended representatives, Beverly Purvis and Bridget Day. So we expect to recommend approval come Monday's meeting.
All right. Next on the agenda, rolling right along, board policy for first reading 5.310, vacations and holidays. So Ms. Osbrook's isn't here, but we did review this this policy in our policy committee for last week, and the changes that we have are largely related to the change that we made at the budget time. So we needed to update our holidays for paid holidays for our classified staff, and then just a couple little editorial changes on the increments that vacation can be taken, but and how vacation is on line 19 on page 1. They basically are going to receive a lump sum when they leave for any accrued vacation, which was our practice. Everybody did it anyway, right? So, but other than that, does anyone have any questions around this policy?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just
Sure.
want to specify that this actually places into policy what we did with budget with respect to adding 2 additional holidays for 10 and 11-month employees. And as we discussed at the policy committee, we intend for this to be an ongoing discussion to continue to try to find opportunities to increase that.
Well, that was part of my question around the fund balance. If we had a discussion around if we had incremental fund balance that we were going to potentially ask to modify it. So no pressure, Rachel, but if you have any extra fund balance laying around, will be a continuing discussion. Next, one of our discussion topics at our strategy session this afternoon was the annual agenda, and so Mr. Golden, approval of the annual agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's just fun to say this. This is the annual agenda item to approve the annual agenda. We through this process establish those items that we know for various reasons must be discussed sometimes at a particular month, but sometimes just at some point during the school year. It's to inform you about some basic things that we will be bringing to you on a monthly basis and to ensure that we comply with those annual requirements from the state. So certainly open to any questions or discussion you may have related to those. It's a follow-up to our earlier discussion today.
No questions? Are you sure? Going once? And we have officially adjourned our shortest work session in recent history.